to appeal. Okay.
We're being recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Say it's women's wear, say I'm selling to Target women's wear. And I'm like, okay, well, this is who we're trying to hit. So that's going to inform the style of the motifs we make, the hands, whether it's watercolor or graphic, simplified or more sophisticated, all of that comes into the art side of it, is like really interpreting what the right way to draw the flower for this end user, and it's the colors that we're using to appeal to that end user. So all that comes into the art direction, and I feed that to our artists, and I work with them, giving them feedback as they're working, and then they'll create the art, send it back to me, and I will finalize it with scale. So the size of the motifs, the size of the print, and the final colors that's going to go in our collection. And I use general understanding of our collection and also what the colors that are trending for the season to create the color palettes and all that.
That's one of the hardest things, colors.
Yeah, color is definitely one of the hardest things. And I've finally gotten there, but it took a while to it's a lot of intuition and also like creativity, trying to do something that's a little different. So it's not the same red, white, and blue prints all the time. You want it to be more interesting, but not too interesting, because then it's going to scare clients away. So there's that fine balance. So we talked about, so I do the art direction, then we do artwork creation, that's creating the motifs themselves. So we have these little peacocks as an example. So our artists will either paint them or draw them. A lot of it's hand done, or we'll do it on the computer in Photoshop or Illustrator. And then once the motifs are created, we'll put them into the repeats and the technical design of it. And then we'll do the finalization, release the art to me. Once the prints are ready to go, we have a whole process of organizing them, labeling them, all of that to keep them set for the collection. Then we get samples printed, and those are our headers, and that's what's behind us on the walls. And then Bree will take those and work with our clients and find the right prints for them, sell them, and then our clients will print them on products.
So yeah, it was cool. We sold one to Crocs. I thought that was fun to share.
We sold a lot to Crocs.
We sold a lot to Crocs because Crocs are trending. I thought it'd be cool to include that picture. And that's to I think that was, I don't know who that was, the sleepwear one. Might have been Macy's. No.
It's a small brand in LA, but I'm blanking on the name. I think it's Z Supply.
Z Supply. Okay. That's everything. That's our Instagram. Those are our emails if you guys have any questions, or we have 2 interns right now, but if you're interested in learning more about internships, definitely shoot me an email. Maybe we can work something out in the future. We're always looking for people who are really passionate about this, ready to learn, productive, and just excited about the industry. So feel free to email me questions or whatever, because I'm always happy to help.
Do you mind just sharing really quickly what you look for in interns?
Yeah, I like someone who.
So this is going to be specifically for the sales.
Specifically for sales and like business development. So sales, I definitely need someone who understands like Google Docs, Google Sheets, all that stuff that you use so much in college. As long as you're proficient in that, you're great. Especially with Google Sheets, I don't need to know everything in Excel, but I need you to know organizational skills. Within our monthly report, it's really important for you to be able to insert images and make sure that everything is formatted properly. So I don't need you to know like all the Excel formulas. Like it'd be a plus if you did, but if you don't, that's fine. That's easy to teach. I need someone like attitude-wise to be open. If I need, and very ready to shift gears whenever. So I might have a meeting that's someone schedules an hour before. So I need you to help me create my prep. So like I prep for a meeting whenever I have one. So I'll research like what they bought in the past from us, what their current collection looks like. I'll go through the notes we have with them and write that up, and then I'll pull for the meeting. So I need someone who's able to just work quickly and collect all those photos from our server and put them on a document for me to look at. I just need someone, open-minded, wants to learn and digest everything and just be a sponge. As long as you have a positive attitude. And something else that might sound like a given, but not everybody is great with, is grammatical skills. I need you to be able to send an email and sound super professional. I need to be able to call a client and use proper grammar, because you're putting our face forward. So it's really important for you to present yourself in that way. And that's important with sales in any industry. realize that you're representing Surface Print Source every time you send an email, every time you make a phone call. If you remember that, then you remember to be as professional as possible. So those are the main things I look at interns. If you have some background in Photoshop, that's always great. You have to, make some invoices for us and just be willing to, contribute to the business. It's definitely much more hands-on from like my experiences with internships. Like you are from day one, I'm training you, which I like because I have a training guide. Because I know I was thrown into an internship with Ann Taylor and I had no idea what I was doing. And that really bothered me. QVC taught me everything, which was awesome. So I created a training guide for our interns. They know what they're getting into within like the first 2 days. You're trained. And then if you have questions, you're not afraid to ask me because we're a team. So those are the I know that's a long-winded answer, but those are some of the things I really look for. Just having that attitude and also that professionality.
Yeah, but that was a great response. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Okay.
Any print designer interns?
So we aren't doing print design interns right now, but we have done them in the past. Because I'm like heading the whole team, it can be a lot for me to handle all of the artists and then also add an intern on top. So right now we're not doing that, but general knowledge that you should know is it's very important, because if I bring an intern in, I'm going to have you actually creating the artwork and I'm going to have you actually creating the prints, and we're going to really dive into what is I'm going to teach you like what does a commercial floral look like, what is if this is a watercolor florals, because it's like with my briefs, I'm very specific about the style and the scale and all that. So I'm gonna be teaching you the whole entire process. So it's quite intensive. So part of that is understanding sort of your strengths and, especially if you're going to work in the print industry, you need to be able to kind of do all sorts of drawing and all sorts of painting and all sorts of motifs. It's like if you have a very strict style where you only do bubbly flowers, that's not going to work for me because that is very limited to what I need for my collection. So I'm going to need you to be able to draw, little cute conversational, like whether it's a bird or a
Flower.
cat or something, and a conversational print is like anything that has like an object on it. So, stars, hearts, that sort of thing. So knowing how to draw characters, knowing how to draw a variety of florals, knowing how to paint, draw, use markers, do things on the computer. Yeah. So it's a very art heavy position. So I only get to hire an intern who has a really interesting portfolio that shows me a variety of styles that they can really do, a lot of different things. And then obviously if I don't expect the intern to know everything, I don't expect the intern to have every understanding of Photoshop repeats and all of that. So that could be something I teach during the process, but knowing the programs themselves in Photoshop and Illustrator is very important because I can't teach you how to use that. It's like you have to definitely know how to do that if you're coming into an art internship for us. So yeah, that's basically it. But definitely when we are looking for interns in the future, I'll have Bree send it out to you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
We
can stop sharing if you want to share your questions.
Yeah.
All right. So how about the team? Can you go ahead and start asking your questions, please?
I can start. So for Brianna, what is one of the biggest challenges that you feel like you're facing in your current role?
Oh, geez. Why do you do this to me? What's your name? Okay. No, I'm playing with you, Sadie.
Okay. We're brothers in the same frat. So
I know. I would say I wasn't trained in understanding print, so I didn't have any of that terminology. Luckily, since I'm at a small business and Erin cares, she taught me so much. Yeah. She cares a lot, which is like awesome. So she taught me a ton of just proper verbiage to explain what a print is. As a salesperson, like selling something, you need to know everything about that product in any industry. I still don't know everything about the products, but I can go to her and say, hey, what is this? Or I can Google it, or we have a giant book where I can like research different prints. So something that's really important is to always be curious. That's what I was like taught at so many internships. Whenever they had a speaker come, they said, remain curious, like have that curiosity within you, or else you'll stop growing. So I think that has led me to be somewhat successful.
Mhm.
I think
For
I've been
sure.
pretty successful in my role. So
I always
think
tell Bree she does a great job, but she doesn't believe me. So it's
I'm
fine.
just always pushing myself. So anyways, I think I didn't really have that terminology background, which was definitely hard at first, but
In general, print knowledge, I feel like understanding sort of the art behind of like what is a, when I was talking about the artist, understanding like how to make certain motifs look a certain way for certain clients, like Bree also needs to understand that. So if a client's asking for a specific type of motif, she needs to know what that means and what it looks like and pull that out. So that is definitely a learning process. Like I've been, and I still, we're still learning because it took me a long time to learn it, but that's part of like every meeting you go to, you learn more as you interact with clients, and it just takes time. But obviously when she came in, I had to give her a fast course in learning that, and we're
Yeah.
it's still
yeah.
it's still a
But yeah,
process, but
it's been
good.
great. I mean, it's been really cool. I would say, what was I gonna say? I just lost my train of thought. Like I actually have like a folder on my desktop called like, I don't know what I call it, like learning curves or something. It just has screenshots. Like I didn't know the difference between a cheetah and a leopard. And someone asked me for cheetah prints and I showed them leopard prints during the meeting. And I was like, oh no. So now I have a screenshot where like I look at that. So like you learn, like something else to remember is you're gonna make so many mistakes when you start in a job. And instead of like freaking out or bringing yourself down about it, just go with it. It's a learning curve. It's something that you're going to have to take with you, and then you won't do it again. Or even if you do it again, you're like, oh wait, I already learned this. Like, let's stop. So as long as I think the most challenging thing was definitely learning the terminology, because I already understood the business side, which has been really cool, because I think what's so great about my job is since I'm the only one in the business who has a business degree and an MBA, like my boss actually turns to me for like advice about her business. And it's terrifying, but it's also so cool. It's like, oh, well, I think we're going to hit this sales goal. We're probably not going to hit this one because of our sales history. And let me show you this chart. So all that stuff I learned at Jefferson. Like I learned that not even just in my MBA, but in undergrad. And like, I want you to know that you are prepared. Like I thought I wasn't prepared for the world. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I won't forget. Do you guys know Professor Data? She was my advisor. And I went to her and she was like, you can graduate early. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to stay an extra semester to take more fashion merch classes so I know what I'm doing when I'm in the industry. And she's like, Brianna, you just need to go into it. Like, just jump into it. I was like, but I don't know everything. So I think that you're never going to. So just like keep that in mind moving forward. So that's advice plus what I didn't know.
Yeah. I have another question for Brianna. Out of all of your experiences and or classes taken at Jefferson, which one helped you succeed the most in your career?
No pressure. No pressure.
No, honestly, Professor G's class. Okay, so I think there were two, and they were both Professor G, I think. Okay, so the first one was definitely that freshman class you take, Insight, Global Fashion
Insight.
Because it was hard, and it made you like understand how much it costs to make a product and all the things that go into it. And from creating like a product start to finish and working with the other classes, like retail strategy and structure and, the merchandising, buying, whatever, visual merchandising class, it taught you like collaboration. It taught you the importance of numbers. It taught you, how a business can actually function, which was really cool because I took a lot of what I learned there to create Kind Fashion and actually be profitable. Which was amazing. So I think that was one of my favorite classes. I think I took a lot from that. And then I think I really liked my business classes, but there's nothing. Okay. Graduate school entrepreneurship class, that was a game changer. So we had to create a business from start to finish. So kind of like GFI, but now it's like on steroids. So like you have to create an entire business model, business plan that's like 20 pages long with your group. And you have to do a pitch and you have to know everything about this product you're creating. And that really pushed me because at the same time I was doing that, I decided, because I'm a complete dork, to do the same exact project, but with Kind Fashion on the side. So like when I had to create this business plan, I did it for Kind Fashion too. So at the end of it, I knew what I was actually doing because I took what I was learning in class. So I think that was a game changer. You can take MBA classes in undergrad. If you really want to challenge yourself, take entrepreneurship. It was definitely a game changer for me. So I think those 2 classes, because one kind of built on the other.
Was that with Jason Crook?
No, I love him, but it wasn't with him. It was with, I don't know his name. I don't think he's at Philly Jefferson anymore. Like he stopped, I emailed him, he didn't respond, which isn't common for Jefferson students or teachers. They always respond. I think it was Scott. I have to double check. I can like email to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then another good book he recommended, it was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I think everyone should read it. It's by Susan Jeffers. Especially going into the career. It's only like 100 and something pages. So if you don't like reading, just get through it because you can finish it in 2 days. And it just talks about like fear of failure, fear of whatever, like fear of like career goals or whatever. And it tells you just get rid of them all. There's no like, and it's
Or
just
just
so
push
well,
through it.
or just push through it.
Yeah.
So I definitely would recommend using that if you're like afraid of your first job or struggling in an internship or anything, or just in life. I mean, it can be very helpful.
I have a question for Bree too. I have questions for.
Okay, you have questions for
everybody.
everybody. Okay,
I have
great.
questions for everybody. So
Okay.
first one, are there any expectations that you had about your career path that you found have differed from reality, like what you thought it was going to be, and then it turned out to be like completely different?
Actually, that's a good question for both of you.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do going into like college wise. I started off with biology. I thought I was gonna be a doctor. Everyone in my family's a doctor. Then I was like, I hate this. Let me do fashion and business. So I just threw myself into it without knowing where I want to be in the industry. So I just tried to absorb every single opportunity within it, internship wise. So like, I think career wise, I just lucked out. Like I went into it open-minded. Like I didn't have like, okay, this is what I want to do for my job. It was, this seems pretty cool. I get like the job description said I get to travel to Paris. That sounds fun. Like I work well with people. Like I worked retail. I think that's okay. Let me say this. Everyone should work retail, at least for a certain part of their life, for going to fashion merchandising, because understanding the customer from that level is something you can't get anywhere else. It's a hard job, but it makes you like, when you're like in the corporate level, say like, oh, this is what that customer is looking for, and understanding it from that retail level is something like I take away with me. So I was a stylist at White House Black Market. So I brought that into my sales role here. So it's really cool to see like all your internships and jobs come together in fruition over one job. So I didn't really have any expectations, to be honest. I just went into it saying, this might be cool. This might be what I like. Let's try it out. So I think I was a bit more vague with what I was looking for.
Yeah. And for my career, with my college specific, like starting off, and this is kind of how I've treated my whole journey, is kind of like, what's the next right thing? So in that moment, like what are my options and what is going to push me in the direction that I want to go in? So, starting even just picking my major, I was kind of like, okay, my 2 favorite classes in high school were anatomy and art. And I was like, okay, what do I feel like fits my personality more? And I was like, let's not go the anatomy route in the medical field, like you said. I was like, let's go more the creative route. And then my freshman seminar, we got to see all the, I went to school, general art major, didn't know what I wanted to focus on. I just knew I wanted to do something that I could do and have a job at the end. Cause a lot of if you're a painter, that's I couldn't see myself just being a painter. I wanted to do something that was going to give me a career. And then I heard about fabric design, which I never heard about. So I was like, okay, that sounds great. I love this idea. So let's go into fabric design. And so when I was at the end of my undergrad, I was kind of like, do I want to go into the industry? And I had a lot of people telling me, you don't need a master's program. You can definitely get a job straight out of undergrad. And that's true. But for me, the thing that was really driving me is I want to know the whole thing. I don't want to just have one little piece of the industry that I understand. I don't want to just know how to make art for for products. I want to understand how the whole process works. And that was just my personal thing pushing me. So I was like, okay, let's do a master's degree. And I had a professor who really like encouraged me to do that. And that, I learned so much. It was one of the hardest things that I've done because I had to write a 150-page thesis, and I had to conduct a research study, and it was very out of my zone, but I learned a lot, and it was really fun to learn that. And then getting out of school is kind of like became very practical. It's like, okay, I need a job. Like, where can I work? I was in a small town in Florida. Well, not super small, it's in Bradenton, Florida, and Bell's department store is located in Bradenton. And I was like, oh, let's just get a job there just to get me started. Let's just get a door open. I need some experience. I'm not going to be too picky. I'm starting on the ground floor. And I was like, obviously I wanted to bring in sustainability with my, that's a really big focus of my master's program. But, it's like, it's very hard and it's kind of impossible to get all the little pieces of your dream in one job. And so I didn't put that pressure on myself. I was like, okay, let's just start as a CAD designer and let's work my way up. So started as CAD designer, learned a ton, still have great relationships with them, even though I was only with them for 6 months. I ended up like giving them plenty of notice because it was not an expected quit. And they ended up they're a client of ours. So I still work with them today through the studio. So that worked out great. Moved up here. And again, it was like, okay, so here are my skills, what's available to me. And it wasn't like this whole job has to be my whole future. This is like, what's the next right step? And so I got the opportunity to work for the studio, and I was like, okay, let's try sales. I'll learn a lot, go from there. And then this job has just really morphed with me as I've been here. I've learned so much from like my, very intro into the print industry and understanding the commercial side, because I didn't have the lovely classes you have where you get to go to fashion shows and you get to really, or like that is like, I wish that if I were to add something to my undergrad experience, it'd be more industry knowledge and industry, like just examples of like going to shows and doing internships with really big companies. And like, that would be a really cool opportunity. Whereas I definitely interned with smaller companies, but that kind of fits my vibe in general. It's like, I've worked as the studio for 5 years and I've really enjoyed the small business. Like, you get to do a lot of different jobs. You're not stuck in one lane. Your creativity and your innovation is very necessary to keep the company moving forward. And so that's been a really fun journey for me, being at the studio and, all the ups and downs that come with working for a small business. So as far as like my career, I don't have a solid plan, but again, it's like, what's the next right thing for me right now is kind of where
you stand,
where my mind is at.
Thank you. I'm curious to know, how many prints are you developing per season?
About 70 or a month. We do. Well, you go this. This is you. This
I'm
is
like,
you.
I got this.
This is you.
So we right now are doing about 70 prints a month. And that is on the lower end of what we typically like to do. If we were to do an average, if I were to say like our ideal would be like 150 prints a month. And it really depends on kind of what's happening at that month. Like, do we have a lot of sales meetings going on? Do I need to help with sales? Is it taking away from art direction or creating prints and finalizing them? So right now our pattern is 70 prints a month, but we're hoping to up it soon by adding a few more contributing artists.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm watching the time and we are running out of time. Does anyone have any final questions that they would like to ask? And thank you to the team for those great questions and leading the session today.
I was actually just curious if you guys, like you said, you buy prints from like company or like from people that if you don't make them yourself. I was just curious like who you buy from, if it's like local or like other companies or things like that.
You mean vintage? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I remember you mentioned something. I was just curious.
So we do purchase vintage, and there's a warehouse in Philly. I think it's called the Vintage Warehouse, where they just sell bulk vintage items. And basically it's a bunch of cardboard boxes that I have to dive through, and I find things, and then I check the tags, and then I have a whole like website that I go to check to make sure it's okay to use legally, obviously. And then we always change them as well. It's not just straight up the same, but yeah, I think it's just called the Vintage Warehouse.
Yeah, I want to go.
it's really fun and you get dirty and you dive in. But right now it's kind of limited. They do have like sales, or they have times where will let like general public in, but since COVID, it's like you kind of have to be with a company and you have to pay a minimum of a couple $100. So it's a little hard for like individuals to go, but every once in a while they do like, okay, weekends, Saturday, $20 entry fee, and that goes to your final purchase. But
Well, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you had mentioned early on that you mostly use screen printing for your production. Aside that, do you use any other method for production? And also, how long does the production cycle take?
so we actually, our samples are printed digitally. So we actually work with a printer in North Carolina and we print just these pieces of fabric. So this is what our product is that we show to our clients. And then they purchase the art and we send them a Photoshop file that's production ready and they can be printed. And that's where I was talking about screen printing. Like we make our files so that they're very easy to screen print. And so that's kind of like how that works. As far as the timeline of production, we can turn around a print in like a day, and then it takes 9 days to get our headers back. And then, but with our website going up, we're going to have art available to clients immediately. So the studio is a little different from like a typical fashion company where it's like a whole process of like, they do months of prep for, and it depends on the companies. Obviously Zara does a lot faster, but typical schedules are a lot longer. But with the print studio, it's a lot faster and we can like really crank it out.
Okay, it makes sense. Thank you.
Great question. And I noticed that we have another question in the chat, if we can answer that, and then we can wrap up. Thank you for all your patience. What has been the global challenge for Surface Print Source after the pandemic? That's from Rosna.
Rosna, it has been hard. I think, like I was saying, it's challenging because clients can meet with so many more studios. So it's really about just pivoting and figuring out what's going to work best. So what we've been doing is trying different marketing techniques, and doing virtual print shows instead. So like when a print show comes around, we'll send an email and say, hey, this is the week of the print show, we can do virtual appointments. So trying to keep those print show months, like the sales relatively high, even though they're usually obviously a little lower now during the pandemic. Do you have any else things?
Well, I was thinking of this as like from a different perspective. So a global challenge for the studio. So I don't know if this is what the question was, but something that popped into my brain is, most of our clients are in the US, but obviously we would like to expand more around the globe. And the biggest challenge is really understanding that each location, like when we go to Paris, the prints that they're looking to buy are different than what people buy in the US. So it's really interesting to be in a different market, whether it's the Parisian market, which, or like the Chinese market or Australian market, and they have a whole different sort of style and general style to the prints that they're looking for. And that was something I learned going to Paris as the art director. Like I would assume that, our prints are really successful in the US, so they're going to be successful in Paris. And that is not always the case. It really depends on like the market you're going into. So from a global standpoint, as far as us expanding past the US and Canada, the challenge is just the amount of art we have and are able to produce, and the amount of clients that are in the world, and us being able to target that client and deciding whether focusing on the global market is more important than continuing our growth in the US market, because there's a lot of clients we haven't touched here. So for the most part, our studio focuses on the US market because it's a little easier for us to access. Obviously we are in the US, it's easier for us to understand trends and the brands themselves because they're the ones we buy. But when we go to Paris, I learned a ton from an art direction perspective, and I also learned how to grow our collection and appeal to new clients as well. So that's a different perspective of that question.
I was thinking business wise, she was thinking art wise, makes sense. But yeah. Oh, this was so fun, guys. I miss school.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your experiences with our Thomas Jefferson University students. It's
I really
great.
appreciate this. This is really fun because I've done other like meetings with students and I really appreciate how you guys structured this. As very, you already had your questions ready, it's very interactive. So from our standpoint, it was very nice to present to you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We'll take it. So remember, professionalism at all times, it goes a long way. Try to tell them that all the time, and people recognize that. So thank you for that remark. And again, thank you so much, because I know you are extremely busy and time is one of those things that you can't get back. So we really appreciate you spending that time with us this evening. We will be in touch. We'll stay in touch. We'll love to have you come to campus or we visit when the circumstances are a little bit better, but we will definitely open our doors to you. Brianna, we know this is home for you, but to the both of you, thanks again, and everyone have a wonderful evening. We shall see you again next Thursday, same time, same place. Be safe. Keep us in your thoughts as we again travel with the students to Fashion Week, because it's crazy out here, and I just want to make sure we get there safely and return safely, and that all of you remain safe as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for being professional, and we will chat soon.
Alrighty, bye guys.
Bye.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an awesome kickoff. Thank you. Yay!
Oh, this was the first one?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's fun.
That's